Welcome back to another episode of This Week with Carolina Commits, a show where we look past the stars and the rankings and we evaluate the on-field performance of UNC commits. I'm THI staff writer Brandon P. Joining me today is the publisher of NC Preps and the director of football recruiting at Tar Heel Illustrated. That's Miss Dina King. How are you doing today, Dina?
Wonderful. We're recording this on Labor Day, so we're laboring.
Laboring on Labor Day.
uh-huh.
Yeah,
run this later on in the week.
So UNC commits went 17-7 in their high school football competition, and we're here to talk about the top 5 performances of last week, correct? Yeah, of last week. We're here to talk about the top 5 performances of last week of UNC football commits. So we're just going to jump right into it, and starting off with number 5 is somebody who I think is coming to UNC to play tight end, but they're listed as an athlete, and they've shown that they are an athlete in their high school play. And I'm talking about UNC commit Ryan Ward. He plays for Rutherford. His team defeated Lodi 37-6. Can you just talk about his performance for us, Dina?
Ryan is a 3-star tight end out of New Jersey, and he had a really good all-around game, helping his team win. 5 tackles and a sack on defense, and like you mentioned, all around he scored on short touchdown runs. So, being being listed as athlete means you can play everywhere, and he plays everywhere for his Rutherford team. So, a great game for Ryan Ward. A kid that Carolina's had committed for some time, and so just a really good performance for him.
Yeah, and you mentioned he's a great athlete. They wouldn't have him listed as an athlete. And UNC, we saw this past Saturday, UNC likes to use more than this past Saturday. We've seen in the past, UNC likes athletic tight ends. They like to get them the ball, let them run. So having another athletic tight end coming into the room would be good for UNC. And speaking of athletes, UNC commit wide receiver Alex Taylor plays for Grimsley High School, who is now 3-0. They defeated Reagan 41-15. The 4-star wide receiver is one of the bigger recruits of this UNC class. Can you just talk about his performance on Friday?
He plays on a really good team. A lot of people have Grimsley as the top-ranked team. They got loaded with talent. He caught 4 passes for 67 yards with 2 touchdowns. Grimsley's offense, they got really a lot of talent. Faison Brandon at quarterback, who's just a sophomore. He's got some really good targets with Alex Taylor and Taylor's Grimsley teammate Terrell Anderson, who is also doing well. He's a NC State commit, but just sharing the wealth, maybe the stats aren't such big as in numbers, but 2 touchdowns for Alex Taylor in a good win for Grimsley.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he has. Obviously, he's probably used to catching more balls, but when you have 2 touchdowns on 4 catches, that's a really good ratio. I don't know if I need to tell the people at home that. But the next person that we have on our list is Davion Gause from Chaminade-Madonna, who actually played Cardinal Gibbons from Fort Lauderdale, which has UNC commit quarterback Michael Merdinger. His team won 41-4 against Michael Merdinger's team, a blowout. But Chaminade-Madonna is one of the better teams in the country. Can you talk about Davion Gause's performance and how did he stand out amongst his teammates?
Yeah, that score really got me 4. And actually, Cardinal Gibbons led 4-0, to start the game and everything. But he's had back-to-back weeks of making our list. Really good games, 16 carries, 134 yards and a touchdown on a really loaded Chaminade-Madonna team you mentioned. I mean, they're one of the top teams in the nation, loaded with really some outstanding talent that's, possibly the best team in Florida. So, he's doing really well and has continued back-to-back really big games for Gause.
Yeah, the best team in Florida. That's a pretty bold statement there. The next, we're going to stay on the offensive side of the ball. We're going to have quarterback Bryce Baker, who I believe has made this list every week since we started this show. East Forsyth is now 3-0. He led them into a victory against AC Reynolds 27-21, a pretty competitive game, it seems like. Can you talk about the future Tar Heels performance on Friday night?
Yeah, I guess it's pretty nice when your 2025 quarterback is making this list. It means he's doing
Yeah.
very well. And Coach Chip Lindsey and Coach Matt Brown and all the offensive guys there on staff at UNC, they love seeing these numbers. 16 of 24 for 287 with 3 touchdown passes, and he ran 4 scores. So he's showing his versatility. AC Reynolds is a good football program. They're arguably the best program up in Western North Carolina year in and year out. So
Yeah.
it was a good win. Their home opener there at East Forsyth. And so Baker continues to keep putting up those big numbers.
Yeah, and the final person we have on this list, this list was completely all offense, is Javarius Green. I think Javarius Green is in my opinion, I think he's one of the bigger playmakers in this recruiting class. I think he's a guy that he's electric when he gets his hands on the ball, and he kind of showed that past Friday against Shelby High School, helping his team to a 53-38 win. Can you talk about his performance last Friday?
Yeah, Javarius Green, he is. Well, I think he's going to be a sleeper to a lot of people. I mean, not to people in North Carolina, definitely not people in Cleveland County, and not definitely to the Carolina coaching staff because they love him. 5 catches, 159 yards with 2 touchdowns, and then he returned a kickoff 75 yards for a touchdown for the Chargers. I mean, he had the most outstanding performance this week for me. Just a huge weekend for him. Of course, playing the rivals, the Golden Lions. That's a big rivalry down there in Cleveland County, and he really put up some great numbers and definitely used that 4.39 speed that he's been timed at camp. Yeah. So it was a good performance.
Yeah, that was a big game down in Cleveland County this week. And speaking of big games, this coming up week, we have a list of games that are going to be the top games of the week. Dina's top picks of the games of the week. So you want to talk about your top games of the week?
Well, a lot of kids are open this week, so we don't have as many to cover this coming week. But Christ School, which features Khalil Conley. They're off to a rough start, 0-3, and it's going to get a little tougher as they go down to Georgia and play Raven Gap, Nacoochee, or whatever. I don't know how to say that, but that team is really loaded. We did some recruiting stories on some of the targets for Carolina Raven Gaps. They've got several Power 5 recruits on that team. So I listed that one. Again, Chaminade Madonna with Davion Gause and his teammates. They're going to host Bergen Catholic out of New Jersey, which pretty good program up there. One of the top programs in New Jersey year in and year out up there. And then in-state battle, Weddington at Butler. Weddington has Keenan Jackson, Thomas Davis Jr., Aiden and Andrew Harris. You saw them this past Friday playing at Butler. Butler's coming off a huge win, went down to Georgia and beat Langston Hughes, which was in some publications ranked number 9 in the country. I think they won the state championship last year in Georgia at one of the higher programs, bigger programs in Georgia. So huge win for Butler. That's going to be a great game for anybody in the Charlotte area to watch. But speaking on Weddington, before we close the show out, what was your thoughts on Weddington with Keenan Jackson, Thomas Davis, the Harris twins, and they played West Forsyth, who has Desmond Jackson, who is also a UNC commit. So your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I thought the matchup between Desmond Jackson and he went against Aiden and Andrew Harris. He moved around on the line a little bit. The West Forsyth, they moved him around. He played left tackle. He moved the right guard when they were down near the red zone. So he matched up with both of the Harris twins. And I thought it was a good opportunity to see UNC future offensive line go up against future Division One defensive linemen. I thought it was a stalemate from pretty much the whole game. They were pretty much just stalemating each other out, which is what usually happens when two elite linemen in high school go against each other. They're usually going to stalemate each other. I thought TJ Davis was an excellent athlete. He was really covering a lot of ground out there. Really, yeah, he was a sideline to sideline type of linebacker. Reminds me a lot of his dad. It's a much smaller version right now, but yeah, he stood out. He's an athlete. He's a really he could play. I think he could play a number of positions on the defensive side of the ball. He's a really good athlete. And then obviously Keenan Jackson. He had a few catches. He didn't. The game plan from West Forsyth was determined not to allow Keenan Jackson to beat them. So he, safety help over top the whole time. He still had a touchdown catch, had about 3 or 4 catches off the top of my memory. The field conditions were a little, they were very wet actually, because, it rained all week here in Charlotte. So it was like the speed, it was hard to get up to full speed. So like the speed difference between the fastest player on the field and the slowest player on the field, it was a lot smaller because of the wet field conditions. It kind of felt like when you're stepping on the field, it kind of felt like you were stepping on someone's hoodie the whole time. I kept feeling like I was stepping on someone's jacket because the field was just so soft. So I think that had a lot to do with the lack of catches for him, but he did a good job, stayed enthusiastic, was a great blocker, used his physical tools, showed that he can really get off the line of scrimmage against press coverage. Like, it doesn't make sense to try to press him because he's 6'3", approaching 200 pounds. He's a physical guy. So yeah, overall it was a good I could see why UNC would be very interested in everyone that they offered out that was on that football field on Friday night.
Yeah, it was a 44-22 win for Weddington. And just to mention, in talking to Chad Greer, Providence Days coach, Jordan Ship's high school coach, he's kind of told me the same thing about Jordan. A lot of teams are just trying to deny him the ball, and he's being a really good teammate. He had like maybe 50 or 60 yards receiving in their big win over Charlotte Catholic. Catholic was determined they were going to try to shut Jordan down, but he good teammate, block for people, and being just like I said, a great teammate. So good week for North Carolina commitments. Like I mentioned earlier, several of them will be off this week, and so we're gonna we might not have 5 big performances. Might have to cut them down because several of them have open weeks this coming week.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I talked to Keenan Jackson after the game. I just want to touch on when you talked about Jordan being a good teammate. I talked to Keenan Jackson after the game, and I asked him about his lack of catches in this particular game, and he told me that he doesn't care if he gets another catch for the rest of the season. He's team focused. His whole goal is to win a state championship this year. And I think that's a really good attitude to have, especially coming into a program like Carolina where, you want good teammates like that. But Dina, I think that's a good place to stop. For TarHeelIllustrated.com, I've been Brandon P. She's been Dina King. Thank you for watching.